Hi everyone, happy Sunday. It's Alysia here and I'm very excited to be with you today for our bi-weekly Sunday Investor Global Online Fireside Chat. We are broadcasting to you live from London today. Our meetings with investors and entrepreneurs continue to be incredibly fruitful, and we're championing our community when I speak at the UK Ghana Trade and Investment Forum here in London later this week. I can't tell you how brilliantly our community is being received here in one of the financial services capitals of the world. As some of you may know, I attended the Fortune Most Powerful Woman in the World Summit here in London, where I once again made some incredible inroads on behalf of our community, the future of which is hugely exciting, and I can't wait to share more exciting updates with you. Once again today, we have an amazing session planned for you. We have a panel of brilliant investors joining us from across the globe, logging in to help you understand the importance of selecting the right board for your companies and keeping them happy and abreast of all you're doing on your business journey to success. As an entrepreneur, scaling your business is often a very scary thing to do, and dealing with matters such as boards need not be that stressful. They are there, after all, to help you on your journey to success. The question is, how do you harness their know-how and value to ultimately deliver growth and success for your company? Now I've got you all excited. Let me go ahead and introduce you to our VIP guests before asking them to properly introduce themselves to you. So welcome to London, UK-based Graham Davies, who is a CFO, angel investor, corporate finance professional, and consultant. Welcome to Johannesburg, South Africa-based Wayne Francis, who's a business turnaround strategist, consultant, and director. Also welcome to Johannesburg, South Africa-based Mayur Jagjawan, who's a data scientist, actuary, and banker. Welcome to California, USA-based Paul Taylor, who's a Silicon Valley venture capitalist, startup leader, entrepreneur, and wealth manager. And welcome to Tennessee, USA-based Gary Somholder, who's a technologist, advisor, problem solver, and architect. Now we'd love to ask our VIPs to please go ahead and introduce themselves to you and tell you a little bit about themselves. Gary, please start.
Excellent. My name is Gary Somholder. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee. So you kind of summed it up at the top. So, you know, my unique ability allows me to identify, discuss, and solve business, IT, and software challenges today, while also simultaneously architecting forward-thinking solutions of tomorrow. And I really consider myself an advisor, architect, change agent, connector, consultant, entrepreneur, futurist, innovator, integrator, strategist, technologist, and thought leader. And I consider myself to be visionary with technology. So my background is in developing large-scale technology projects and ventures, as well as re-architecting and refactoring projects that are either lost or stuck. And I enjoy that process a lot. I love new product creation, love working with other investors to help them get their portfolio companies in ship shape. And really excited to be able to be on the call today and to hopefully share a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of insight, but more importantly, to learn from the community. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Gary. Very excited to have you join us. I know we got a ton of questions for all of you today, so we're going to run through and ask all our VIPs to quickly just go ahead and introduce themselves. Paul, please say hi to everyone quickly.
Hi, everyone. My name's Paul Taylor. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Chief Executive Officer of an ad tech company called Coupon Crush, based in Los Angeles. Coupon Crush is providing technology to companies like Facebook and Snapchat, and we basically help consumers become a virtual sales force for advertisers. I also work as a wealth manager here at Morgan Stanley and help technology companies do cash management. And I'm originally from Canada and also from the London, UK, and I've been living in the US now for about 6 years.
Thank you, Paul. Very excited that you're joining us. Graham, please say hi to everyone from London.
Thanks, Alysia. Yeah, Graham Davies. So my kind of background is corporate finance and strategy for larger organizations, quite a few UK-based large corporates. And then recently moved into setting up a strategy consulting practice for small companies in this startup space here, which is really exciting. So supporting lots of companies with kind of planning and getting them investor ready. And naturally, that's kind of led on to me being supporting small companies as a CFO 1 or 2 days a month or a day a week. So I have quite a few exciting companies I'm working with, and quite a few more exciting companies that I can see up and coming here in London that I want to do more with and support them raise some money. So that's kind of my thing.
Thank you, Graham. Very excited you're joining us. Mayur, please say hi to everyone.
Hi, everybody from Johannesburg, South Africa. I'm Mayur Jagjeevan, and my experience spans the financial sector in both the insurance and banking industry in South Africa. Within these industries, I've had exposure to areas such as credit modeling, scorecards, pricing, financial modeling, remuneration. Client analytics is a big one, as well as in today's world, it's all about the client. Marketing analytics, business intelligence. So I've had quite a diverse amount of experience, in the different areas, especially the banking and insurance sectors. And I think it's proving vital, especially in the financial services industry at the moment. Where we're having to solve lots of business problems, related to retaining clients. Ensuring that the cross and upsell ratios, are maintained within the client context. And we're having to solve a lot of those type of business problems. And I'm really excited to be part of the chat today.
Thank you, Mayur. We love data scientists in our community. So welcome. Wayne, please say hi to everyone.
Hi, guys. Wayne Francis.
Guys, we've got a problem with Wayne's signal. We're going to come back to him as soon as it's sorted out. There is a technical problem. Let's just keep on going, guys.
Strategy, and I think Alysia actually covered and hit that nail on the head.
On the screen are contact details for our panelists. Please feel free to reach out to them. Don't forget to keep sending your questions through to inspireme@onlinefiresidechat.com. And I'm sorry, everybody. We seem to have issues with Wayne's signal. And we love to hear from you. We've got some VIP guests who love seeing your questions, and we do our very best to have all your questions answered. We have community champions managing the chat window to make sure that you learn as much as you possibly can with us today. Just a reminder, we have community champions in ever-growing meetup groups across the globe in over 79 cities and over 55 countries in North and South America, the UK and Europe, Africa, the Middle East, India, Australia, and Asia. I'm not going to list them for you today because I know that the list is way too long. If you'd like to meet up with your local chapter, would like to start your own, feel free to reach out to us via email. We'll do our very best to put you in contact with your local community champion. On that note, thank you to all our champions from around the globe. You are the heart and soul of our community, and you know we wouldn't be here today without you. Over the next few months, our aim is to empower and inspire entrepreneurs in over 100 countries, and we know with your help we can make this true. Thank you again to all our VIPs for sharing your wisdom so freely with us and enabling us to learn from you today. Thank you to our supporters and collaborators from around the developing world for once again hosting sessions for hundreds of entrepreneurs who don't have access to the necessary bandwidth or understanding of the English language to join our sessions on their own. Thank you to all the government ministries, ministers, ambassadors, UN officers, US Embassy Corners, British Council officers, university campuses, schools, business incubators, Chamber of Commerce's, community centers, community radio stations, and media for all your ongoing weekly hosting support and for raising awareness within your regions and communities. Thank you to everyone from our UN Women team for all your support as well. Once again, we stream you across new live platforms, and we know this is only thanks to all of you. If you'd like us to connect with a radio station in your community so we can empower more entrepreneurs around the globe, make sure to reach out to us so that we can make sure to help you. On that note, we have some very big news, so stay tuned. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, let's jump on in and start learning. just to make our VIPs feel as comfortable as possible, we're going to pose a question to one of you, and it goes out to all of you. We'd love to hear your feedback. We're here to learn, so please feel free to share your insights, and let's get the day started. So here we go. Our first question goes to Graham. Graham, we're putting you on the spot. We hope you don't mind. So, based on all your experience, you've had this extraordinary experience in the city. In your opinion, why do we as entrepreneurs have to have a board, knowing that most of us are absolutely petrified of them?
I think for me, it's, if you think about really why a board's there, so there's two main elements to it really. One which is kind of, I suppose, the kind of the boring side in terms of corporate governance, and they're really there for the investors really to make sure that, I guess, the investors' investment is kind of in safe hands. You know, ensure everything goes kind of in order and to plan basically. So when the company kicks off their fundraising plan, they'll say, you know, we're raising money to do X, Y, Z, a growth initiative. It's really up to the board then to ensure, as far as possible, that to hold the company accountable really, and ensure that, you know, we do actually deliver those plans for the investors. But on the other hand, at least in my opinion, I think the other side where I think boards can add a lot of value is they bring their experience from the relevant sector or even other sectors, and use their background to really advise and add a lot of value to the company, support them with strategic planning, you know, and strategy, and really help them deliver the plan. So one is kind of making sure the company's accountable to the plan, but also supporting and making sure the company can deliver what it said it would.
Thank you, Graham. And you've touched on some incredibly important aspects to how the board ultimately adds value to you as a CEO, to your company. Gary, do you want to add anything to what Graham was saying from an American perspective?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, Alysia. So I think one of the things that's really important about boards is to have a concentrated knowledge base and experience forum that you can go to with your most complicated and challenging questions. People that not only have expertise, but people that have a real unbiased outlook into your company and its operations. And more importantly, have a real unbiased outlook into where you should be with your 5-year or 10-year plan. When you find the right board members, you enable yourself to be surrounded by experts who not only are able to provide you with insight and knowledge and provide you with that really most important pathfinding ability, but more importantly, you allow yourself to start to understand the lifeblood of your business. And that's when you know you have a great board. When everybody is working for that common purpose, that common goal, they're getting up every morning, looking at the board and going, okay, what do we need to be doing? What moves do we need to be making? I really want us to be able to be successful, not only as individuals, but as a company and as an organization. And so I think that's something that's really important. And it also comes back to the point of, if you don't have the right board members and you don't have the right type of people on your train, it's very difficult to continue to move the momentum of the business forward, because you're constantly dealing with internal conflicts and resolving issues and having to play an entirely different role than really being able to actually grow, build, manage, and excel within your company and within your organization.
Thank you, Gary. Once again, I'm learning a fortune and scribbling down notes as you and Graham are speaking. So, Paul, following on from what Gary was saying, he touched on some very important elements. In your opinion, what are the most critical aspects for a young CEO to think about when they're assembling their board?
Well, to tell you the truth, when I think about assembling a board, I'm kind of thinking in terms of the side view mirrors and the steering wheel concept that Graham touched on. I think you've got to look at, I agree with him about the compliance aspect, but I also think you need to bring people to the table that are going to enable the business to grow and to scale. And I think part of what is what is effective in an effective board is to look for people that have experience that can make those connections and those introductions to you. And so when I'm assembling a board, I'm looking for somebody that has maybe complementary skills. And so when I say complementary, sometimes I'm talking about skills that may be very different from the skills that I bring to the table. So I excel at selling, and I excel at building. And maybe sometimes being an entrepreneur and being a CEO, we tend to have this mentality that we want to burn cash and we want to grow as fast as possible. So sometimes when I'm assembling a board, I look for example, in my present startup, we have a top 10 Forbes CEO, and he has really helped us with the risk management. He's helped us actually slow down our burn rate. And because of that, we've been able to actually extend our runway, and we've been able to find corporate partnerships that maybe we would have not found because we ran out of cash. So those are two kind of things I look for, both the side view mirrors perspective, so compliance and governance, and then also a steering wheel perspective and a growth perspective where they can bring on partners that can help you scale the business.
So thank you, Paul. And I'm going to jump right in here because we have a community question for you. It's made up of two parts. Number one is, how did you get a top 10 Forbes CEO to come onto your board? And number two, can you talk about the relationship building aspect of your board members? Because this is critical. We hear this over and over again in terms of their need to kind of provide you with connections and that when you need them. So please go for it, Paul.
So the one thing I'll answer the first question, a little bit of dumb luck. I think we all need that. I don't think anything just, we start companies thinking that it's all going to go to plan, and we find out that that's never the case, and that you pivot several times. And that will bring me to a further point, which is that's why the team's so important. But in my particular case, we started Coupon Crush as a small startup, not dissimilar to most Silicon Valley startups or startups in LA. And we started with friends and family. And the one thing that I can say from experience is that never underestimate the power of your network. And also never underestimate the power of second and third level referrals. And so we had a friends and family investor that referred us to one of his clients. And it turned out that client happened to be a top 10 Forbes CEO and was interested in funding and leading our round. So that's the first part. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Exactly what you've been touching on there, relationship building abilities, introductions, connections to help you keep driving your business forward, and the important role this plays in terms of recruiting the right board members.
Yeah, I mean, one piece of advice that I'll give to all the entrepreneurs that are starting out is I kind of have 4 axioms that I live by. It's working effectively with board members and also attracting the right kind of board members. Number one, this goes without saying, but your best asset is yourself. And so I would say just be yourself. Let your personality shine through your passions. When you're pitching, just pitch to the stars and don't be afraid of what people think about you. That's what people like about you. Second is be authentic. This is the part of being likable, and it helps the board members really want to work with you. And when you screw up and you pivot, they're going to be a lot more forgiving. They're going to keep that funding going. Number 3 is I would admit your screw ups. If you're wrong, just say you're wrong, pivot, move on, keep tight loops on your MVP and iterate quickly. And last is just to be transparent. And I think if you have these qualities as an entrepreneur, I think you'll find you're going to attract the right kind of board members and you're going to attract the right kind of investors.
Fantastic insights, Paul, and you've touched on so many important elements. Definitely coming back to you. Mayur, we'd love for you to share South African perspective on this. Please share it. Please go ahead.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I think when choosing board members, I think what's critical is to make sure you get the subject matter experts. Obviously, based on a specific type of industry, you want to get the best minds around the room, to discuss issues, problems, ways of solving those issues and problems. and then the best way to do this is get the best minds in the room. So the subject matter expert for me is a very critical component. And also, what's important in the South African context is corporate governance. So I think a board to a very large extent brings the corporate governance to the table, making sure that the actions, the goals that the CEO is trying to achieve from a financial perspective, from a people perspective, from a legal perspective, are all met, with the corporate governance overlay. So that he's acting within his mandate and making sure that the best interests of shareholders are kept at heart. And then obviously, the other sort of functions of a board that I think are important is obviously, your remunerations and, so the various, individuals within the company, how do we remunerate them? How do you, and what I found personally is that, remuneration seems to be a very big carrot, to drive the sort of actions that you want to see in the company. So I think from my perspective, that's what I feel about, making sure you get the right board, because having the wrong people on the board can quite easily, steer the company in the wrong direction. So that's critical.
Thank you, Mayur. And you actually took the words out of my mouth there. This is awesome. I get to learn from the best. So here goes. Graham, Mayur touched on something very interesting in terms of recruiting the right board members, corporate governance, fiduciary duties and that. And here in the UK, you've got some of the biggest investors in the world outside of Silicon Valley. And from time to time, it's very intimidating for young entrepreneurs to actually interview potential board members and make sure that you're doing your correct due diligence and making sure you're recruiting the right board members for your company. Have you had any experience in this regard that you could share with our community?
Yeah, sure. And I think the key is, and I think Paul touched on this, and Gary, is kind of every single conversation is important. So, just have that conversation with someone, even if you think, oh, this conversation is going to be a waste of time. You just don't know, and they might open a door to somebody really, really key. But I think, and like Paul said, it's about being authentic when you meet a potential new board member, a potential investor, about being really authentic and transparent. So that people feel at ease around you, so they don't feel like you're kind of leading them along, or there's something not quite completely open about you. Just be completely open and authentic, and I think that will just attract the right people to you. And kind of in my experience and what I've seen, the chief execs, the entrepreneurs that have that approach and they're just being themselves, I find tend to build better companies, at least here in London anyway. And the ones that kind of put on a kind of facade and try and aim to be a bit fake don't really tend to be as successful.
Thank you, Graham. And this next question is for you, Gary, following on from what Graham was saying. And it was very interesting at the Fortune conference. They were talking about making sure that your board members are there for the very hard times. And in the world of startups, there often are some very, very hard times. And I'm sure you've been through it, having played the role of venture capitalist. Do you have any tools of the trade that you could share with our community in terms of making sure that whilst your board members on paper may look spectacular, how do we make sure that when the times get tough, we actually have the right board members by our side and they're not going to throw us under a bus?
Excellent question, Alysia. So one of the things that I learned early on in the venture capital community is that board members, investors, and business partners can be more important than your spouse. There's a true marriage, for better or worse, that needs to take place, because when you're building an exciting startup company and you have some level of traction and you have identified some level of success metric, people are excited. People come around you and they say, wow, what you're doing is incredible. Everybody loves to hear about a big idea. I've never ran into anybody in my career who said, I don't have 5 minutes to talk about the future. Everybody loves talking about it. And so when you're sitting there and you're talking to these individuals, all of a sudden they basically associate themselves with your company and they start to paint a picture of what they can do with their level of involvement, with their role, with their responsibilities, with their contacts, with their connections, with their funding. What's interesting is if you look at that road and those two paths diverge, there's always two groups of people that actually come to the surface. One group of people is, I'm there during the good times. And then there's another group of people who are truly invested, who are truly on the path, on the journey with you, who are there through the good and through the bad. And so what I like to do is to work through this with a legal concern. I'm a big fan of vesting agreements. So if somebody really wants to be completely involved with your organization and with your company, put them on a vesting agreement, which is a legal document that says, as you complete these milestones, tasks, and objectives, your equity then becomes performance-based and then is paid out to you under this vesting schedule. And so now you have somebody who isn't just getting the gold today, they're having to work in the mine with you every single day to bring up every gem, ruby, and diamond. And those people, over time, you're going to realize that they're either that first group of people that we talked about that are not going to be there through the hard times. How do you find those people? Well, I think what's really important is to understand and ask questions and be curious and have that contagious disease of, I need to learn and I need to grow and I need to become better. And if you're just honest, transparent, authentic, that's what's really important. If you go into these conversations and you say, look, I'm going to paint a scenario of a really bad thing that happens. How would you handle this? What would your systematic response be? What is your experience? What is your track record? What do you really think at the end of the day we need to do as an organization? Those are the people that become absolutely invaluable to you. And a great example of that is a large organization right now that, just voted in and said, look, the CEO's got to go. I think we all know who I'm talking about. I won't mention the name. The CEO's got to go. Ariana Huffington, who probably has very little experience in that specific rideshare industry, had to make a decision to protect her investors, had to make a decision to protect her shareholders. More importantly, it came down to, I got to do the right thing at the end of the day, because there are millions upon millions upon millions of customers who are going to be completely reliant on this decision that I'm making. And it's a hard decision. And you're seeing a little bit of backlash right now where you're seeing that some of the employees are saying, hey, he really needs to come back. That's because nobody likes change. Nobody likes to talk about the big 10,000-pound elephant or hippo in the room. That's what you have to do. That's what you have to find. Those are the type of board members who will help you walk over that treacherous path. They're pathfinders. They will lay out a plan for you. They will provide the options for you, and then they'll let you make the decision. What you don't want is somebody who says, look, this is the way it is, and at the end of the day, this is just how it's going to be, and you have no control over this. You want people who provide you the opportunity to learn and then keep you in balance and keep you in check and provide a path for you to be successful. And yes, there are times where you have those kind of challenging or maybe even a bit confrontational conversations. 99% of the time, it's because they're passionate and they want to help you. They
Fantastic insights, Gary. And there's absolutely no way we could have today's session without talking about that company. So thank you. I was actually going to bring it up. Wayne, do you want to add anything to what Gary was saying?
Yeah, Alysia, I think it's critical, and I agree completely with what Gary said. I also think it's very, very important for boards to actually really understand what the business does, and to, I think, more important to build this thing and what you're trying to build. I think that's critical, and everything's just fall apart from what I want to give at this point, because I think most companies, people get boards, they don't believe in what they're doing, and that's really when things go better, you're under the bus, as you said.
Thank you so much, Wayne. I know you're having some connectivity issues there, but we are looking forward to you still sharing your insights today. Paul, the next question is for you. Following up from what Gary was saying and following up from what Wayne was saying, in your opinion and based on your experience, how do we remunerate board members, especially when they happen to be the world's best and we have these journeys to travel, and often it takes a lot of work to help us get our businesses to succeed and become unicorns? Please share your insights.
Yeah, Well, before I begin, I'm going to make a comment about what Gary said about that ride-sharing company, which I'm going to call Uber. And a couple of things. First of all, investors and board members, first and foremost, are investors. And especially as companies grow and you attract institutional money, let's face it, at the end of the day, everybody wants to get their money out. So as companies grow, for example, the love affair that us co-founders have with our business eventually is replaced by the fact that institutional money wants to exit. And so in that particular case, I think it might have been also a fact that, one co-founder wanted the company going and the institutional investors might have wanted to IPO. So that's my general comment on that, on the street, obviously wearing my Morgan Stanley wealth management hat. So in terms of remuneration for board members, especially the affluent board members, look, these guys are already rich. They've done it right, and they've, a lot of them have had multiple exits and profitable exits. Some of them have had unicorn exits. In our particular case, our board member was one of those guys. They do this because the real remuneration is about the satisfaction of being able to say, look, you know what? I funded this company. I believed in them when they were just an idea. And guess what? You know what? Now, through my support and through building this team, I can proudly say, look, I had a part to play in this company's growth. So, I think it goes back to my original comments about being authentic and getting board members on the same side of the table with you. The real remuneration for them, yeah, it's about the money, but it's really about, they love the story. They love to be part of the team. And, they love to see something go from an idea and problem solve and get through the hurdles and kind of move the company forward. So I think as much of it is about investing in people and investing in the company, I think a lot of it is just, like I said, about the passion they share for business. So I think that's sort of how I feel about that.
So, Paul, I have to say thank you. You have truly inspired me. And I always ask you as VIPs to be 100% honest with our community. So here goes. I'm trying to get one of the most powerful VCs in the world to say yes to helping me with something. So you inspired me to just do it. So thank you, Paul. Most appreciated. The next question is for you, Graham, following on from what Paul and Gary were saying. And I'd love for you to share with our community why it's so important for investors to ultimately have representation on startup boards.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Makes sense. It's an interesting one because I think, obviously, from a chief exec's or founder's point of view, there's kind of, well, often what I see, there's kind of a want to be left alone to run your company. But I think why it's important for investors to have a seat on the board or some kind of, is really because they're very vested in that company. And I think they've seen this before, they've done this before, hopefully they're very experienced investors. Because of course, the important thing is to get the right capital on board, first and foremost. So, just having the cash isn't really enough nowadays. You need the cash, you need the investment, but you also need the expertise. So that investor, or whether it's an institutional investor or an angel, the reason why they need a seat on the board is because, one, they personally want it because they want to ensure that their investment is going to plan. But two, I think it's important for the founder because they can bring a lot of experience and really help you drive the company forward. Like everyone's touched on already, it's just really key to have that really kind of strong, reliable sounding board that you can share with openly about any issues, anything that's going on, in your company, any problems you need to overcome. Just having that person there to really help you overcome those issues. So I think it works both ways.
Thank you so much, Graham. And I think this is something we'd love to ask you. One of the entrepreneurs you're working with happens to be one of the most famous chefs in Europe. And that's a very creative profession with a lot of challenges, but ultimately you're running a business and you've got investors who want a return. You're a corporate finance guy, so you're sitting between these two parties. How do you ultimately keep the investors happy, your board members happy, and keep your creative genius CEO happy, and kind of make everybody work together? It's not an easy situation.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is an interesting one because, generally speaking, most investments in especially in startups and in tech, which generally most of the venture capital is going in right now, is all about returns, really. But what I'm finding in this case with the restaurateur is really the investors are investing because they're excited about the project and they're interested, and they want to be part of something really cool. Not necessarily they're going to get 10 times their investment back. So this is an interesting one, because how do you make sure they're getting returns? Well, actually, what they really care about is this person actually going ahead and creating this really cool restaurant, and is everyone loving it, and has it got a really nice PR vibe going around it? And it's more about that really, rather than financial returns in that case. Does that make sense?
Brilliant, Graham. And I know Gary's got some insights he wants to share there. Gary, please go ahead.
Yeah, so Alysia, I think it's really important to understand what type of investor you're actually working with. So, and this really comes down to what I've learned over time, which is stage-specific or sector-specific investments. To highlight on Graham's point, most likely the investors, and I'm doing a little bit of assuming here, and we all know how that works, but most likely the investors that Graham is talking about are very successful, very wealthy, very well-to-do people. And so they have a different commonality that they're sharing. There is a group of high net worth or ultra high net worth investors who purely want to deploy capital because it's something cool, it's something fun, and it's something to talk about on the golf course. And I hate to be that trite, but that's really how it is. Exactly. It's really important to understand that they want to be associated with powerful experiences. So if you're a guy who has planes, boats, houses, cars, you kind of run out of things to buy. Well, what's the next cool thing to do? Well, it's really cool to fund a record label. It's really cool to, be a part of funding a movie. It's really cool to have the most current and most up-to-date restaurant. These are things that they want to have as kind of collection items that they're really excited about. And so this is an important part of learning who your investors are and what their motives are and what their real MO is at the end of the day, so that you can understand in their life stage, where are they? What's important to them? Whereas an investor who is maybe earlier in the angel career or in the venture capital career, they have a very different objective. Their objective may be, for me, I'm trying to deploy X amount of capital so that I can create X amount of returns, so that I can then risk X amount of capital to create X amount of returns. And I'm not to a life stage to where I would be really interested in what we call lifestyle investments. But it's important to understand that. It's important to recognize it. I'm going to go back to a phenomenal US-based investor and entrepreneur. His name is Marcus Lemonis, a very, very successful guy. He has a really great process that I love to kind of adapt from. I certainly always share that it's his because I didn't create it. But it says people, process, product. That's really the key. So if you look at Graham's investment opportunity, what I think is important to note is that the creative genius needs to have all of the other things taken care of him so that he can just be a creative genius. In that model, I think it's very successful. If you have the person, but you have the process and the product, and then you build those systematized processes around that creative genius, you insulate him to where he can focus on less and less and less and less of the business concern. And he can just be the creative leader, the idea guy, the person that's, proverbially throwing paint up on the wall. That's where that model works really successful. It becomes scalable. It becomes a self-identifiable model. And it has the necessary components to then have revenue, monetization, profits, and EBITDA. But you've got to look at it like, hey, he's got to drive the train, but we really, at the end of the day, don't want him driving the train. We want to make sure that he has a great staff of people, a great staff of executors, people who can move quickly, break things, be about their business, who can really fine-tune his process, his procedure, his protocol, to where now you've got a successful idea guy who has successful executors. Now you have a scalable and solid business organization.
Gary, you guys are on fire today. I'm taking tons of notes. I'm learning more than anyone else. So thank you. Brilliant, brilliant insights. I know Paul's got some ideas he wants to share with us. Paul, please go ahead.
So this is kind of advice to all the kind of entrepreneurs that are getting ready to pitch their ideas. And obviously this dovetails on Gary and Graham's excellent comments. Listen, when you talk to investors, just ask them what's important. And if I'm wearing my wealth management hat, I mean, this is a private equity investment, and it's an investment, and they're looking for a return. And a lot of times when I talk to my lead investor, my Forbes CEO investor, he said the most powerful pitch, the most impactful pitch he ever had was when the entrepreneur stopped, and the first question he asked is, he said, look, what are you looking for in this investment? For example, how does this investment fit into your asset allocation? And he said, hey, you know what? I'm looking for a handful of companies to fill a 10% sleeve of my portfolio. I've got about $400 or $500 million worth of investments, and I'm looking to deploy about $50 million worth of capital. And he said, I'm looking in these technology areas. And then once he understood from the investor's eyes what his needs were, then he product pitched and tailor-made and bespoke the pitch towards that investment. And so all I'm saying is sometimes as entrepreneurs, we like to go into our spiel and we like to kind of pitch and sort of almost verbal diarrhea our investments. Let's think of them in terms of investments, and let's think in terms of what the investor and what the venture capitalist is looking for in terms of their investment policy statement. And I think if we do that, I think we have a better chance of closing on that deal and getting our deals funded. So that's just my sort of 2 cents on that one.
Thank you, Paul. And we've had a session like this before. I'm very interested to ask Graham his perspective from a British point of view on what you just said. And then I know Gary's got some insights he also wants to share. So Graham, please comment to what Paul was saying from a UK perspective.
Sure. I think it's right. And I'll just echo exactly what they said. I think it's exactly the same here in the UK. And it's about understanding who you're pitching to. So, you know, I think there's lots when you're an entrepreneur, you're a founder, and you're out raising money, and the most difficult stage is probably seed stage. You're trying to get your angel investors on board. You know, you meet hundreds and hundreds of people. You know, and I think there's a way of making that more efficient. And I think a way of making that more efficient is kind of, you know, in a nice way, vetting who you're speaking to before you speak to them. You know, am I speaking to the right person? Yes, they're an angel investor, but are they right for my company? Is this really the kind of person I need in my company? You know, is it worth having the conversation with them? So I think it's really key to understand that at the outset. And like the other guys said, when you're then pitching to that investor, it's kind of being smart and tailoring your pitch to what they're looking for. You know, I think that really helps close the deal rather than just going off on your standard pitch and just going through your pitch deck. You know, really try and tailor it to their needs.
Great insights. Thank you, Graham. I know Gary's got some insights. Gary, please go for it.
Yeah. So echoing on what was just put together by Graham, which I really enjoyed and really like, and Paul's comments as well. And it's really exciting to hear how this is coming together. So one of the things that I've come to learn is basically what I call living and breathing pitch. So if you think about a machine is normally a static object. And you normally, once you build your machine, it does a mechanical process. The problem with a machine is that it doesn't do everything for everyone. So if you're talking to an investor, it's important to do research. It's important to do homework. It's important to do due diligence on the investor. I've never gone into a pitch meeting with any investor without knowing what have they invested in prior to this. What are their normal check sizes? What is their investment horizon? What is the return on investment? And there's tools that you can utilize. There's services that are commercial. Some of them are a little bit expensive, but they have great data and great insights. There's a company I won't mention, but it has a lot of information about what a firm or fund or angel is invested in. It helps you to be prepared so that you know what to actually say, what to actually do. What's most important about that conversation is that it's a living, breathing machine. So if you go in with this static viewpoint, all of a sudden it's, okay, I've got A, B, C, and D that I'm going to lay out for this investor. You need to be able to move, pivot, pitch, and play to their concerns, play to their ideas, play to their wants, play to their theories. You need to be able to have a conversation that becomes dynamic and fluid. So that now you have an opportunity to really, on the spot, deliver who you are as an authentic entrepreneur, who you are as an idea person. If you're at the seed stage, it's a little bit harder. A lot of times they're looking for traction points. If you come to me and you're looking for funding, I'm normally looking for traction points. I'm normally looking for, why is this a good investment for me? But here's something that's really important that I want to touch on. You want to make sure that the person that you're getting funding from is not just a check, but is a check that checks into you. And what I mean by that is you want somebody who becomes accountable to the company and the organization. And if they're not that person, then you want to use them as just a part of your round. There are lots of sophisticated high net worth investors who, like Paul said, have a small asset allocation in their portfolio stack, let's say between 2 and 10%. They're just looking to deploy capital purely as it's high risk capital, but it has a high opportunity for return. Those investors, normally in my experience in the United States, are not as active with their investments, and they normally honestly are just checking in on, how's my money doing? We call it collecting the rent, right? It's important to understand those types of investors and to put them into your capital stack when you look at your actual cap table, so that you can understand this investor wants very little to do with me and is purely a capital source. Whereas this investor brings contacts, connections, expertise, guidance, is a potential candidate for a board member seat. And that's when you can really start to understand it becomes a living, breathing machine. It's no longer a binary process. There's no longer a 0 or 1 that's attributed or associated. It becomes, how do I put the right pieces of the puzzle in place? And more importantly, do I have a plan of what the puzzle looks like? I've never been able to put a puzzle together without seeing the box. Now, maybe you have, Alysia. I haven't been able to do it. I always have to see the completed picture. And so that's what's important about being an entrepreneur. Yes, you have pieces that you're missing, but you got to know what the picture is. And you got to be able to show somebody the picture and say, look, if you give me this piece and I have these pieces, we can construct the puzzle together. And when the puzzle is complete, people will not only be enamored with the puzzle, but it will generate a return because we can go and sell it. And that's the key to being an entrepreneur, is finding each of those individual puzzle pieces, knowing what the picture looks like, and then carefully and really methodically constructing how every one of those pieces fits together, and figuring out sometimes you need to move the piece. Sometimes it's upside down. Sometimes it's, needs to be moved into a corner. Build those corners first, build into your puzzle, build that middle picture, and then finish each one of those pieces to where then you could say, look, I have this completed. I'm excited. I feel passionate about this. I want you to be a part of completing this puzzle with me. The more pieces you have, the easier it is. That's why it's a living, breathing machine.
Thank you, Gary. And I know Mayur's got some insights from South Africa he'd love to share with us in terms of what Gary's been saying. Mayur, please go for it.
Yes, I just wanted to share a sort of short insight. When it comes to the investment community, what I found personally is that at this point where interest rates are quite low, government bond yields are very low, a lot of investors are chasing, some sort of a yield that's good. In the South African context, it's a bit different, where we've got, bond yields at around 6-7%. So, it's admirable. But I know in the US, the UK, interest rates are at an all-time low. So, investors are looking for other forms of yield. Now, obviously, investing in startups, seed funding, etc. comes with risk. So we often weigh up risk versus return. I think that's the first step. And then the second step is depending on the type of investor, is whether it's a field of interest. So I find that, at least half of investors, want to invest in something that's a field of interest, something that they understand. I know Warren Buffett is a big, promoter of investing in only activities that you understand, that you've got a sort of a circle of competence around. I think that's, in terms of the investor community, that's what my experience is and what I found.
Thank you, Mayur. I think Wayne wants to add a few comments there. I know he's been having some technical issues. Wayne, please go for it.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Mayur. I think a lot of time investors need to have an understanding of what the market's saying. I think also they need to have cognizance of short-term gains over long-term embedded value, and looking at a business and the sustainability of a business before they actually invest. I think a lot of the guys these days want to invest and they want to, they're going for that short-term gain, getting the money out quickly, but they don't necessarily think that businesses sometimes need a 3-year or 5-year plan, and I think that's critical in this age.
At the rate of disruption globally, what you've touched on is incredibly important, Wayne. Paul, we've talked about the role of investors. We've talked about recruiting ideal board members. Let's talk about board sizes. I know different size companies, different size startups have to have different size boards. What, in your opinion, is the way to go?
I think it's a great question. I think it all depends on the company and the stage of the company. I don't think bigger is necessarily always better. In fact, I kind of think the opposite, especially with early startups. So from seed to stage, Series A and up, I think the board grows with the company. My experience is that big names aren't necessary for growth. And so I don't think, for example, you need Jeff Bezos on your board if you're a small tech company trying to get product market fit. In fact, the guys that are the big name board members, they're used to having the resources sometimes of a Fortune 500 company, not always. And so I think that, if you're a young entrepreneur and you're out there and you're thinking about your board members, also think realistically about the responsibility of satisfying those board members. And I speak from experience that, if you're a 2 to 3 person team and you're going like crazy to try product market fit, you don't want to be doing reporting P&L documents every 2 weeks and getting into a situation where maybe the board member or that investor is expecting that kind of service because they've been in large unicorns. So that's one of the things. So I'd say big names aren't necessary. I would also say small, manageable, and nimble. And what I mean by that is you don't need a lot of board members, but I think whoever you choose to work with, you don't necessarily also have to agree with them. I think sometimes we think that startups are, they're this love affair and everything goes well. I think what you'll find is sometimes having board members that have contrarian views to you can be really complementary. And to give you an example, we touched on, I think it was Graham that touched on the idea of corporate governance, which I like to call the side view mirrors. And then also the scaling, which and the direction of growth, which I like to call the steering wheel. I think that having complementary skill sets with the board and having maybe a smaller board has saved my butt on several occasions. And let me give you an example. When we raised our seed round, my co-founders and I, we thought we had product market fit. And so we built and we spent money and we burned cash. And it was because of our corporate governance and because one of our board members had strong operational and a compliance background, he actually slowed our burn rate to about a 10% of what we currently were trying to burn and extended our runway from about another 6 to 12 months. And what that actually allowed us to do this month was actually find a Fortune 500 company that wants to partner with us, or at least we're talking about partnering and licensing our patent. And so board size is important, but I think being small, manageable, and nimble, and I also think finding, board members that have complementary, maybe even contrarian skill sets to what you have is a good balance.
Wow, wow, wow. Thank you for sharing, Paul. I know we're running out of time, but we want to quickly ask Gary what he thinks, and then we're going to ask each of our VIPs which industries are ripe for disruption. Gary, please quickly share your insight here.
Yeah, absolutely. So very simple phrase. It comes from the culinary world. You can always have too many cooks in the kitchen. If you have too many board members, it's very difficult to actually get anything accomplished. Got too many cogs, too many gears, too many chiefs, too many Indians. What's really important again is, and I'll go back to this point, stage specific. So is this board member familiar with working inside of a Fortune 500 organization? It's probably hard for them to anticipate the difference and really understand the complex scenarios that are changing hands inside of a small organization or a startup organization or a seed organization. So that's really important. The other thing I think is very important is, can this board member actually anticipate problems? And can they, quote unquote, put on their goggles of the future and show you, okay, these are things that we need to identify, address, and solve today. And these are things that we need to plan for in the future.
Thanks, Gary. Okay, now we're going to run through our panel. This is my favorite part of our investor sessions. And we're going to ask each of our investors and thought leaders which industries are most ripe for disruption. Gary, which industry is most ripe for disruption?
So I have a huge love for real-time technologies. So if it's real-time, I think that's where the future is going. I think it's very interesting what's happening with blockchain. It's very interesting what's happening with cryptocurrency. But if it's real-time technologies, video chat, email, that's what I'm interested in, and I definitely think that's the future. And that's also what I'm investing in, is real-time dynamic technologies.
Thank you, Gary. Paul, what's ripe for disruption?
I'm going to go with artificial intelligence, and I'm going to go specifically with the healthcare industry. I was just at a venture forum on Tuesday, and that industry is about to explode. And so I think that's that industry is ready to pop. So that's my vote.
Thanks, Paul. Graham, in London, what's ripe for disruption?
Thanks. I definitely agree with Paul. Healthcare is very kind of immature from a tech point of view, and it's huge value there, which is going to be unlocked, in the coming years. But also here in London, at least, insurance is a big sector, and insurance is very prehistoric, if you like, from a tech point of view. So there's loads of value to unlock in insurance and insurtech.
Cool. Mayur, what's ripe for disruption?
If I speak from a South African context, what I'm seeing is the retail industry is up for massive disruption. We've got online retailers such as Takealot and Buy that have come to the fore, and they are really disrupting the environment, especially with the advent of our financial services industry, which is also coming to the party. So I think there's going to be massive disruption there, and it's already started.
Cool. Wayne, quickly, what's ripe for disruption?
Yeah, I think just from a South African perspective as well, I'm going to go with banking. I think if you look at South Africa itself, a lot of the huge insurance industries have just embarked on getting their own banking licenses. So companies like Momentum and Discovery basically all got banking licenses now, which means there's no more top four banking, business in South Africa. I think that's quite key.
Awesome. Now we're going to ask our experts to prepare a tweet piece of advice based on today's session that we can all go ahead and apply to our businesses. Thanks to everyone for a truly amazing session. As you see, we keep learning from the very best, and these insights just keep on coming. So to keep you posted, this upcoming Wednesday, we have a phenomenal session planned. It's titled How to Start a Company with No Free Time and Make It Work, Success Stories from Some of the World's Best Investors. Just to keep us up to date on all your progress. We love hearing your exciting news. You can always email us at inspireme@onlinefiresidechat.com. As I say, our experts also love hearing from you, and they love hearing your success stories. You can find me as well as our experts on LinkedIn, as well as our champions. So we want to keep hearing from you. Don't forget, if you enjoyed today's session and feel there are other entrepreneurs that can benefit from our fireside chats, remember to keep sharing the invitations. We are trying to get to our 100-country goal and can only do it with your help. Now, we want to ask all our experts to please share their tweet piece of advice, starting with Paul. Paul, hit it.
All right, I'm going to go back to one of my 4 axioms, which is being authentic, and here's my tweet. Be true to yourself. If you follow that principle, a lot of decisions are actually pretty easy.
Brilliant. Thank you. Gary, hit it.
So I'm going to go back to one of the points that I made earlier, which is don't have a static business machine. Nobody wants to invest in something that they can't understand and that cannot be dynamic.
Thank you, Gary. Wayne.
I'm gonna basically say exactly what I said earlier on. I think we should focus a lot on creating embedded value and not short-term gains. I think it's critical for businesses to look at the existing customer base and focus on cross and upselling instead of just looking at gaining new customers.
Thank you, Wayne, said as a true man in finance. Mayur.
Yeah, mine is centered around client centricity. So for me, it's it's quite simple. Those who understand their clients best through data and client analytics will win the client attraction and retention battle.
Thank you, Mayur. And Graham, please give us your tweet piece of advice.
I'm gonna go with the authentic piece as well. So be authentic, open to sharing, and say no to self-limiting beliefs.
And my tweet piece of advice along the lines of what our VIPs have said, and thank you, Paul and Graham, for inspiring me. Be grateful for all you have. We are incredibly lucky to learn from the world's best. We're incredibly lucky to be entrepreneurs and to be building our dreams, so never take it for granted. Thank you to everyone for a truly amazing session, and thank you again to our VIPs. On the count of 3, 2, 1, I'm going to ask our VIPs to all shout bye to you. Remember to keep hustling, and as Graham said, never, ever, ever give up. So guys, 3, 2, 1. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you on Wednesday.